Hello, Greg. Welcome to the Doing CX Right show.
Yeah, looking forward to talking with you.
Oh, same. Feeling is mutual. First of all, I want to go into and tell the audience, who are you? What do you do professionally?
Sure. Yeah, so I come from originally a marketing background. A lot of people, I guess, get into CX from marketing. I'm one of those people. So I got started early days. I got started in at a tech startup and quickly learned that I liked that intersection of creativity, marketing, technology, all of the above. And so I then started a marketing agency. Following that, ran it for about 14 years, sold it now 6 years ago. So we did a lot of things at that agency around personalization. We built enterprise websites and other digital experiences. So I got into customer experience really from a marketing and a technology, and more that commerce driven focus, and then got more into the customer side of things because I felt like I kept getting hired to do marketing for brands and products that didn't have a great customer experience. And so you can only do so well marketing a product or a brand when you don't have good customer retention and all that. So it just made me curious about customer experience, which then actually led me to be more curious about employee experience because I
Hmm.
got focused on CX and realized, well, yeah, if you don't have happy employees, then you're not going to have long-term customers either. So long story short, I after selling the agency, I started doing consulting, and right now I work primarily for Fortune 1000 companies, usually on things at that intersection of marketing, CX, and operations, and always with a technology bent. And written a few books, have a podcast, and everything as well.
So we share that in common. I came from marketing and I fell into CX and I never left it. So we definitely have a common thought process here. Let's go into a couple questions. But before I do, I want to actually ask you a fun fact about you. What's something most people might not know?
I took 12 years of piano. At one point, I thought I was going to major in music and be a classical pianist. Didn't do so hot when I started trying to compete, but all's well that ends well. I still enjoy music.
That is a great fact. I and played the piano myself when I was younger, but did not take it as far as you did. So um, we definitely have some similarities here. So let's go into your book. And before we get into the specifics, I want to ask you, this is the Doing CX Right show. So what does doing CX right mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's agreed on the premise that CX is important and we should treat our customers well. And I think if we're having that conversation, that's such a basic conversation. That's like 5, 10 years ago, maybe. I mean, for those in the CX profession, I know they've been talking about it for decades. But for those of us a little newer to this, that's 5, 10 years ago. I think what doing CX well now means doing it in a sustainable way that includes not only again having a good strategy and having the foundations in place, but also doing things like involving employees from the top down, bottom up, however you want to look at it, involving employees in the process of not only doing it right from the beginning, but continuously improving it as well. In addition to some of the other things, I'm also a huge proponent of agile, agile principles and processes and things that flow from that. And that's taught me, the value of continuous improvement too, because as good as we can create a strategy and all those things on day one, the world changes and it changes quickly, and customer expectations continually increase and as well. And so we need a plan that's sustainable. We need a plan that involves everybody, again, top down, bottom up. And to me, that's what doing it well means.
Mm. Now, what does all of this have to do with the house that you've built, the house of the customer?
Yeah, so I've written a few books so far, and I've written some talking more about agile principles and applying them to various aspects of branding and marketing and things. This book, House of the Customer, it really comes from working with some very large companies on some pretty complex, again, marketing, CX, technology, operations, all these issues kind of lumped together. But in a large enterprise, those are teams that they might as well be on different planets. Sometimes they're so siloed, and data and platforms and people and processes, all these things are so disconnected at some points. And so, in working with some large organizations, I thought, okay, there are some aspects that they're doing really really well, but there's plenty others that need some improvement, or there's some that some teams are doing really well but other teams aren't doing well as well. And so what I tried to do was break it down into component parts, and there's a bunch of pieces of this house, but using the metaphor of a house. So there's a roof and walls and pillars and foundation, and naming these things. People within organizations can look at this and say, you know what, like the roof is the processes and the systems of the house, and maybe we do that really well. Maybe we're a very like operational focused and project management oriented organization. So you know what, we don't need to focus there, but we need to understand our customers better. And so by dividing these and teasing these things apart, we're able to focus on those areas that need the most improvement. And
Mm,
it's also a way of, it includes everything. It includes business goals and business outcomes. It includes customer needs, and it includes employee needs and culture. And so lumping all that together, it's not easy. It's not simple, but I found using this house metaphor is something that we can all for the most part relate to.
Well, before we enter some of the rooms of the house, there's one thing you mentioned earlier about personalization and privacy. Those two P words are so prominent. Another P word. Talk to us about privacy. We know that there's a lot of concern and worry with technology these days. How do you, what's your view on that? What do you say to people who are scared about the technology, but yet we know we need to embrace it and we use it also to personalize?
Yeah, definitely. And so, I've been involved, since early days of, Europe's a little ahead of us with some of the regulations on consumer data privacy. So GDPR, those of you that work with multinationals certainly familiar with that already. So I was involved with some of the customers I was working with in the early days of that, where it was really the wild. But it reminds me now the AI regulations were sort of in that sort of nebulous gray area there. Consumer data privacy is still, though, not well defined. And if you work globally, it's different everywhere. It's even different within different states within the United States. And so, the approach here is there's a few philosophies to take, and different organizations that I've worked with have taken different philosophies. One is lowest common denominator. If Europe has the most stringent requirements, let's design our privacy standards for Europe, and then California and other places in the US and elsewhere in the world, they're no more strict than Europe. So we're gonna it's kind of a catch-all. There's other ones that are more federated, and we look at this approach of let's use as much data as we can for the place at hand. So the United States would is a little more lax than Europe, so maybe we can do a little more personalization there. All that to say, that's kind of the technical parts. Technical also being legal and stuff. But at the end of the day, customers, we know from seeing stats. I mean, there's a million stats out there. Customers value personalized content, offers, experiences when we provide that to them. They're turned off when they don't receive those and they go elsewhere to get more personalized experiences. What brands need to do is make it very clear that when you give me a piece of information, I'm going to use it. I'm going to be a good steward of that data for sure. But they're going to use it in a way that is meaningful. They're not just going to ask for random facts about you and then just store that in a data lake somewhere. And it's a food company. Why are they asking me about what kind of mountains I like to ski on? It's sort of
Mm.
like, make sure that what you're asking and the data that you're collecting is relevant to the offers and content that you're going to provide. And then customers are, for the most part, going to be willing to provide that.
Mm. So, in other words, full transparency by the brands.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, if you're asking for a lot from customer, I mean, our data is the most valuable thing that we can give a brand these days, and customers more and more know that. And
Mm.
so and yet they're not. I'm not averse to telling a hotel company that I like to stay on floors that are higher to the sky than the ground, because they use that information to give me a room that I enjoy staying in more than others. So that's, but again, asking a completely irrelevant question and just having that about me, like, that's just kind of not only weird, but it doesn't make me feel a lot of trust for that brand if they're asking me a lot of stuff that, well, who are they selling my information to that's going to find that useful? And do I want them to have that information? Or that's maybe a worst case scenario, but you know what I mean? It's like, let's
Yeah.
let's let's tie the information that we're requesting from people to a real valuable thing that the brand can then offer their customers.
Mm. It's definitely a balance, because we know we need personalization, but we know that that personalization requires data. And so that's, I think, the delicate dance that companies are
Yeah.
facing. What is your personal view? Because we're all guessing right now, in terms of the technology, avatars, and voice cloning. I mean, that's a marketer's dream, but a consumer uh, nightmare? I'm not sure. What's your view?
Yeah. So I mean, I guess there's a few things here. I mean, one, I'm I'm an optimist about all of this stuff, and I've been doing this for a few years, and I remember the early days of Photoshop where oh my god, like, now we can Photoshop people into whatever backgrounds, and how can we ever tell that
Mm.
something is photoshopped? And now I would say most people can tell when a photo is faked. And there's deep fakes and there's deeper fakes and all those kinds of things. And so, AI and things are helping us get better. But so from a fraud perspective and everything like that, I think humanity will catch up to the fraud. It's like the constant dance of, like, cybersecurity. It's like, they cybersecurity catches up, and then hackers get a little smarter, and it's this dance that will never end. And I think that part is, it's going to continue, and I think we'll get smarter. I think the other part of that is just the, even when it's not done for fraudulent or nefarious purposes, the lack of humanity in communications. And because you can mimic a human voice, or because you can use generative AI to have a chat response or things like that, is it the right response? And sometimes, I'm a huge proponent of AI when used well, but you got to know when you've got to be transparent about its use, because I don't like chatting with AI if I don't know that it's AI. If I know that, then I take it as it comes, and it's either a good experience or a bad experience, but at least I know what's happening, and the brand's being transparent. But I think that comes into brand transparency too. It's just like, the technology is available. It's getting better all the time. It will be better. But, when is a person the right application to use, and when is a non-person the right application to use? I think brands are still trying to figure it out. And I don't blame them, because a lot of this stuff is pretty new.
Well, given your high focus on personalization and that being so important, with also the mindfulness of privacy, what brands do you see doing it really well, or that fueled part of your book in the House of Customer? What comes to mind?
Yeah. I mean, I think, without naming too, without getting too specific here, I mean, I think what I know and the brands that I'm loyal to use a combination of real people and automated stuff. I mean, a Fortune 100 company cannot reach out one to one to every customer that uses their product, and therefore they've got to automate things. Again, I think it's in the application of automation versus using real people when needed. And so a bank that I'm loyal to does a lot of automated messaging, but when I need them and when I have a question, I've been an early adopter of some of their products and things like that, and given them feedback. I know that there are real people reading my feedback because I've actually seen features that I've recommended implemented into their products. And so I think it's, again, the right application of personalization. And, when it doesn't really matter that I talk with a human, go ahead, send me automated messages and do all of that. As long as it's relevant to me, I don't care if it was auto generated or not. And so,
Mm.
I think companies that are able to do that are able to make images and offers and all those things truly relevant to what I'm seeing and what other consumers are seeing. That's that the statistics that I've seen are it resonates really well.
Mm. Well, what can companies do to make people address the fear of privacy for the benefit of personalization? Is it specific messaging? Is it, what can they do?
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, there is that weird, like, how personal should we personal, like having a picture of my front door in an advertisement might be a little like a bridge too far as personalizing. Like, on the one hand, wow, that would be kind of cool to that they would do that, but it's super creepy and I wouldn't want that. So so again, how personal is personal? I think this comes
Yeah.
down to what's beneficial to the customer. Is it beneficial for me to see my front door? No, it's just weird and creepy. Is it beneficial to know that, okay, this offer is relevant to people in the Washington, D.C. metro area where I live? Yes, absolutely. I don't want to see something for Philadelphia or Santa Monica or wherever. I
Yeah.
want to see things for where I am and what I do and what I like. And so that's brands. There is no playbook, no prescription for this specifically. It's what are your customers going to find beneficial? Constantly be testing and see what they do find beneficial. Constantly be looking for that lift that comes from personalization, and pay attention to when you do get feedback of like, hey, that's too much. And I think most of the brands that I work with, they're going to err on the side of caution, not pushing the envelope too much. There might be some startups out there and some smaller companies that can afford to take some risks like that. But again, I always it's like at what data you ask for. It's what content you provide and what offers you provide need to need to be unique, but also beneficial and not just, hey, we have this about you, so we're going to use it.
Mm. So it sounds like some common sense, doing the basics right
Right,
is
right. And
key.
then move from there. I mean, because again, even sophisticated organizations, they're struggling to keep up with the demand to truly personalize. And so you don't have to go. I mean, the book touches on the concept of one-to-one omni-channel personalization. And for many companies, that's science fiction right now. And that will happen and we'll all get there at some point. But it's a north star that we should all be striving for. It's not like we got to do this tomorrow if we're really just rubbing two sticks together trying to start a fire right now. It's okay. Let's make things better. Let's if we're marketing the same to absolutely everyone right now, let's start breaking it into audience segments. If we're already using segments, let's break it down further. Let's get to one to one, maybe on a single channel or two, and start there and then learn and then adopt. Because I mean, in many cases, tying five channels together, it sounds nice, but it takes months and sometimes years to get those teams to even work together at a large enough organization. It would be better to just learn from a couple channels and then adopt that from there.
Mm. With your house of customer, there's 7, right? Is there 7 principles to the
Yeah,
house?
yeah.
Okay. So at high level, what are the 7? And maybe we'll dig deep into one given the time we have left.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, I know it's a lot to cover. So yeah, over the roof over our house is the processes and systems that they protect us when we don't know what to do. Sometimes those processes help us and guide us. And the walls of the house are on one side we have the business objectives because those as much as we want to serve customers and employees, we also need to keep the lights on. And so we need to make sure we have objectives, and on the other side are the outcomes. So, we need to achieve those business outcomes. The foundation of the house is the agile customer centric culture. And so while it's customer centric, it's also built around employees and motivated employees and employees that feel value and purpose in their work. And some of that purpose can come from serving customers and just doing a great job and innovating on behalf of their customers. And then in the middle, we have 3 pillars, which are understanding, serving, and listening to our customers. And so, that is everything from the data that we collect that we talked about already, the data we collect about our customers, how we use that data, how we serve personalized experiences and other things to customers. And then what do we do when, with their reactions to that? So how are we listening to those customers? And then it feeds back in this continuous and virtuous cycle of we get feedback, we improve, and we improve everything. We improve our processes, we improve our culture, and ideally business outcomes, and how we serve our customers.
Mm. And that's how you make a house
Yeah.
last a long time.
Yeah, yeah.
So, as we're coming to the end, I'd like to dig into some fast questions, which is leadership. What is the best leadership advice you've received or you gave to somebody else?
Yeah, I think the best advice I've ever gotten regarding leadership is on feedback, and feedback is a gift.
Mm.
It's not
Mhm.
it's not an insult. It's not I mean, good constructive feedback. Is it took me, I'll confess, way too long to really embrace that. But yeah, once I did, it's amazing when people stop giving you feedback. That's when you have problems. That's when people are
Yeah.
unengaged and kind of checked out.
Mm, absolutely. And people don't want feedback because they don't want to know the truth sometimes. And that's
Right.
not a reason to not get feedback.
It's not easy to be a leader, and it's not easy to hear criticisms or even mostly positive feedback, but that 1 or 2%. But it's once I started getting over that, I became a better leader, and I did better work.
Absolutely. With all the research that you've done, with all the books that you've written and talking to people and getting feedback and working with companies, what would you say is a key takeaway if you wanted people to remember one thing? What would that be?
Yeah, I think it's that you can start small and grow and iterate. And it's
Mm,
again the house, it's that concept and 7 pieces and all that. It's daunting, right? One-to-one omni-channel personalization. It's really there's a lot that can be done. There's a lot that should be done over the years ahead, but you can start small. You can embrace a culture of experimentation, and there is no such thing as failure if you learn from what you do. So, start small and iterate from there, and it all of a sudden you've done a lot.
yeah, absolutely. Well said. And finally, you have a birthday coming up. And my question for you is if you could go back in time to your younger 20-year-old self, based on what you know now that you didn't know then, what would you tell younger Greg?
Yeah, I mean, other than the leadership advice, I would I probably would have learned a little more about business before I started one. But I've learned a lot in retrospect and got my MBA and did all that stuff over the years. But I started a company when I was 24 years old, and that was an adventure in and of itself. But yeah, I think the value of researching and learning and taking the time to do that, I've never found it to be a waste, even if it was something that I didn't end up pursuing.
Mm.
It's just I've just grown to love learning more and more, and I guess I wish I would have taken that more seriously in college and stuff too. But yeah.
Yes. Well, all the college kids, if any are listening, listen up, take the advice. And also, Greg, it shows your resilience, that you were determined, even if you didn't know, you figured it out. And so I applaud you for that.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate it.
Well, I'm so glad to have you here. And in the show notes, I'll include your website and your books. And I know people will enjoy listening and getting to know you more. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.